白岩学園3年 B 組の皆さん、こんにちは。
Well, good evening. Good evening, everyone. As per usual, my kitty is in a playful mood, and I'm going to have to make some attempt to entertain her just enough so that she'll leave me alone. If you could see it, it's actually quite cute. Okay, moving on. Alright, so today... Oh, thank you for the like. I appreciate it very much. Oh, nice. She's settled down. Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, so tonight, I'm going to discuss just a little bit about the thoughts that have been going through my head as I think about what seems to be an inevitable civil war. The extent of the civil war is unknown. I don't know how rough it'll be. It could be something that is little more than just an exaggeration of the kind of cultural civil war that we're going through now. The only issue with that, rather, the problem, of course, is that things do seem to be accelerating. Things seem to be getting worse. There seems to be an escalation of not only rhetoric, but now activities and actions. It does appear to me that the majority of it is the left making movements and pushes, and the right more or less reacting to those pushes. Very distressing. As I'm sure we all know, Maxine Waters was making calls for harassment of her political opponents in real life, not within the capacity of their jobs, but within the capacity of their everyday life, their normal life. This is an escalation. It's not force, it's not violence. The problem, though, is that it's escalation. All you have to do is track it on a timeline. Track it a few months or a few years out, and you will end up with violence. As things escalate, they will always move to violence, and then finally to murder. This is a very, very bad thing. And obviously, it's something that I think that we should all be aware of. Of course, there's always the ever-present possibility that, for whatever reason, all of this could just stop. It's possible that there could be some kind of a revelation where suddenly everyone realizes that there's no reason to get upset, and there's no reason to be pissed off, and there's no reason to yell at each other in the streets. But I don't foresee that happening, and especially with the increasing the increase in the emotional charge of the rhetoric coming from the left. There seems to be a lot of immediacy in their speech patterns. They're talking about genocide now, concentration camps, neither of which is true, but that doesn't really matter, because they're being triggered by the rhetoric that they're employing, and the rhetoric that they're employing is very charged emotionally. And I don't see them coming back. I don't see them scaling down. I don't see any of them saying, let's be cool, let's be calm. The opposite seems to be the case. They're saying things like, this is not normal. Hashtag resist, and so on. There were a bunch. I don't recall all of them, but there were a lot of these kinds of slogans that were indicating that we should not allow this situation to go unchecked. We should not allow this situation to become normal. We should not sit idly by as all of these terrible things are happening. This is the language that they are employing. And it's hard to scale down from that. It's really hard to scale down from that. I honestly don't know how one would do it. Right now, oh my God, it's so vexing. I'm sorry. I've got like 5 different thoughts going through my head all at the same time. My apologies. You see, it's so upsetting that even I find myself tongue-tied now and again. At any rate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a little tiny list of just some of the thoughts that have been going through my mind, just to get a context, to get a gauge for what I think we're going to be looking at for the next probably decade and a half plus. I've been looking into Germany, 1919, so Weimar Republic, and it seems as though we have a similar problem, inasmuch as we have decadence, we have moral decline, we have kind of a shaky monetary policy, rather the economy. It's doing well ostensibly now, but it's still fueled by debt, and that debt is still coming from a centralized bank that uses fractional reserve lending as its MO. It's always going to fail. These things, they always fail. There's no, as far as I'm concerned, it's just mathematical, not even probability, but certainty. So we have a lot of problems that are similar, and of course, within Germany at the time, there were lots of socialists and communists that were running about trying to instigate a rebellion, which is exactly what we have here in the United States. We do have some kind of a crazy socialist insurrection, rebellion thing happening. So I've been looking into Germany, again, just to get an idea for a model of a possible future. As it's been said, history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. Another way of thinking about it would be that history echoes, and I think that we are seeing an echo right now. So, at any rate, what I see are lots of fits and starts, lots of attempts at a socialist push. Bernie Sanders would have been one of the first ones, one of the first major pushes to some kind of a socialist government program, regime. Obviously, Bernie Sanders failed, but that's not to say that the next one will also fail. All we have to do is consider Texas going blue, which is going to happen in 2025 plus minus a couple of years. Frame Game Radio says it's going to happen in 2024. I've heard some that have been all the way out to like 2030, 2028, 2030. The particulars don't actually matter, in my opinion. Not really. It's easier just to say 2024 because that puts it on a clean timeline that we can all measure that happens to coincide with a presidential election. So I find it easier to think in those terms. And if Trump is elected to a second term of office, this means that the 2024 prediction will basically ensure that there is a Democratic nominee in the office, in the Oval Office, in 2024. This is just the projection that I'm going off of for now. I don't see any reason to think that this projection is off. It just seems reasonable given what I know right now. Obviously, I don't have a complete data set. I'm not omniscient. I don't know everything, so this conclusion makes sense based on what I know. Clearly, if I knew more, I might have a different conclusion, but I don't know more, so this is my conclusion for now. Anyway, I'm sorry, I have to go through qualifiers every so often just to make sure that I know in my own head what the hell I'm even talking about. So let's go ahead and go through some of the ideas that have been rattling around in my head. Here's some of the ideas in order, in the order that I typed them anyway. Number one, railing against capitalism. It seems as though, to one extent or another, the radical left is kind of right that there has been a stratification in our society, and this is not a good thing. I would contend that these are largely due to policies that were actually implemented by people who are crypto-communists, or at least sympathetic to socialism. So I can't really lay it on the feet of capitalists per se. However, because of reasons, ostensibly we do live in a capitalistic society, so it is claimed. I don't really believe that. We do have a lot of socialist policies. I don't see that as being necessarily bad, but I absolutely do see that going too far with it is always going to be bad, in exactly the same way that going into absolute free market is also always going to be bad. So you have to have some kind of management, but at the same time you can't go too far with the management, because then you go into micromanaging and then you end up with fucking USSR. We can't do that, at any rate. The radical left is kind of right, kind of correct anyway, that the economic system, the model we have, does have problems. I think their solutions are terrible, and I don't agree with them in the least. But I do agree with them that there are problems that do need to be addressed. That much I can agree on. Yeah, the radical left is also coming from the standpoint that capitalism is going to fail. This is, in fact, one of the points of communism. They have an inherent belief that all capitalistic systems are going to fail, and that it's their duty to be there when the capitalistic system fails, so that they can implement #socialism. Now, if you think about it from a certain standpoint, I was on a stream earlier today with a guy who is saying that it's all the neoliberals, and it's the neoliberals that are going to be the downfall, they're the evil ones, and so on. The guy happened to be a boomer, and of course the boomers are infamous for hating corporations. So when he talks about neoliberalism, the only thing that I hear in the back of my head is, I hate corporations. And of course the guy was a boomer. It all just kind of makes sense. I think that he I think that he's kind of myopic. That's just my own opinion. Obviously, I could be wrong. This is just what I think. And I think that all you have to do is look at the rhetoric that is being employed by the left, by Democrats. And the rhetoric is very consistent with socialism. And also look at the people that are advocating socialism coming out of the universities. They are all being taught by Marxists, by actual communists. So the rhetoric is consistent, the teachers are consistent, the ideology is consistent. As far as I'm concerned, it checks all the boxes. We simply have a grouping of people, several 100,000 strong, that are all advocating for socialism. Now, of course, a few 100,000 is not that big of a deal, because we've got, 300 million people or something in the country. So several 100,000 is not, it's not a game changer in itself. However, those several 100,000 are pretty freaking committed, firstly, and secondly, many of them are in the halls of power. They're in media, and they're pushing their socialist agenda by manipulating messages going out onto the internet, going out into television, into movies, and also into speeches for political candidates and politicians. As far as I'm concerned, there is a socialist push, and that absolutely needs to be thought of formally, not as a passing thing of, oh, well, the rhetoric is there. No, this is real. This is going down. All you have to do is just, good God, all of the iconography is there too. The fists in the air and the hammer and sickle flags and other such nonsense. So we have to be aware of it. That's all I'm saying. If anyone says anything of the sort, like what I was experiencing earlier, where they're saying, oh, it's just going to be the neoliberals, and that's the people we really need to worry about. We do not need to worry about socialists. If anyone ever says that to you, look them square in the eye and tell them to wake the hell up, and to look at what is coming out of university, and to look at what is coming out of the television sets and off of movie screens. All of it points towards socialism. Tell them to look at what the politicians are saying with open borders and socialized medicine and equality of outcome and so on. Now, this is all, it's all socialist. Okay, so next point is demographics. In the coming Civil War, it's my idea that demographics will play an important role for two reasons. Firstly is, of course, I'll dovetail off of the socialist thing. The number one immigration source is Mexico, and they vote 70%, 7-10, or 7-3 rather. They vote 7-3 Democrat. I still hold that the Democrats are being run by crypto-communists. With that in mind, once Texas goes blue, they basically hand the Electoral College over to the Democrats, and it's all because of the importation of Mexicans. So this open borders policy is going to have a political effect, and it's going to have a political effect within just a couple of election cycles. We only have to wait 6 years to see it, if Frame Games' predictions are correct. I have no reason to believe that he's fibbing or lying. I think that he's thinking about the inside. I'm going to think about the outside. I'm going to assume that we have till 2026, maybe 2028 on the outside. But the point still stands. We're going to see a change in politics because of a change in demography. That's just a mathematical fact. It's just what's going to happen, and we need to be aware of that. The other issue, of course, with the changing demographics is that, basically we, and by we I mean white people, we are going to be ruled, we are going to be presided over by a group of people that hold us in contempt. They don't like us. They have been trained to not like us, and I see it more and more every day. I try to not notice it because it's depressing, but when I go down the street here in Los Angeles, I like to look people in the eye and nod and say hello. And very often, whenever I am passing by either a Mexican or a black person, they decidedly ignore me and they look away. And it's not out of shyness. It's deliberate. I can tell by the way that they cock their head. I can tell by, instead of their back being slightly arched and sunken like they're lurching forward, it's up and out. There is a kind of I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. I'm a little bit tired right now. My apologies. But there's something there that is they're not trying to offend me. There's nothing in the way of an affront. But it's a jab. It's a kind of jab in a way. And I know that it's not personal against me. I get that, obviously. But they're looking at me as a fucking white male. That's how they're seeing me. And so, because they've been trained, and again, I'm speaking of the younger ones. I'm speaking of the ones that are under age 35. The ones that are over age 35, especially the Gen Xers, they tend to be much more genial and nice. Because we all grew up with that idea of, Lethal Weapon. We Gen Xers grew up with Lethal Weapon. So we still have that kind of, insane but goofy and pleasant idea that we can just get along. That we can just sort of shake hands, nod, smile, crack a beer, and tell a couple of jokes and shoot the shit and not worry about it. By reflex action, I still have that as my background chatter whenever I think about this stuff. But for the newer generations, for the millennials especially, this is simply not the case. They hold us in contempt, and as they seek power and as they get seats of power, they're going to hold us in contempt, and it's my honest belief that they will use their power to injure the white population in whatever way that they can. So this is going to be a major issue. This is going to become very contentious. It's going to become very personal. Not personal in the sense of, it's going to be against me, Eke, obviously, or even anyone against, against anyone in the chat, clearly not. But they're going to level their sights on whites in ways that they are not doing now. Right now, it's just it's rhetoric. In time, it's going to be legislation. In time, we're going to see some pretty bad stuff coming down the pike. That's my honest belief. I could be wrong. Obviously, I like qualifiers, and I'm going to keep sticking to them. I could be wrong, but I do think this is what's going to be the case. Okay, now coming further down. Now I'm going to go a little bit into the psychology of the situation as I see it. It's my belief that America has become split, and the right is the conservatives are largely religious. Not all, but largely. And the left is largely atheistic. And I think that the radical left, they are completely nihilistic. I think that they are moral relativists, and I think that they see everything in terms of power structures and power games. I don't think that morality plays too much into them, except for halting suffering. I think that is the closest that they have to a morality, is the cessation of suffering or the cessation of pain. I think that's as far as their morality goes. And this creates, of course, a few problems, because this makes it increasingly difficult to find common ground between the right and the left, because the right will tend to think in terms of agency and morals and ethics, as where the left will tend to think in terms of automatic systems, reflex actions, and not so much moral systems as yeah, reduction of pain, reduction of suffering, victim narratives, oppressor narratives, and so on. And these two language sets, they're not very, I mean, they are technically compatible. There is overlap. Obviously, we can use the same words, and I'm sure there are ways that we could find some overlaps if we really looked. But in terms of political conversation and dialogue, there's not as much overlap as I would like, and that gulf is getting bigger and deeper, and it's not cool. And I think that the nihilism of the left is partly to blame, but at the same time, the weakening of religion on the right is also not all that great, because I don't get the sense that they feel like they're on solid ground at all times. I feel a lot of mincy, wishy-washy language. You know, you ask a Christian a question here in Los Angeles anyway, and they kind of shirk away, and it's difficult for them to answer. They might give you a line from the Bible, they might give you some kind of a dogmatic script or something here and there, but it always comes off as rote memorization. It never comes off as something that they really believe intrinsically. That's a real problem. That's a really, really big problem, which leads me into my next point, which is the left. I really get the impression that the left needs a crusade. They need some kind of a big issue that they can resolve. I think this is why they have a hard-on for the civil rights movement of the 1960s, because that's a really big issue that was great. People were marching, they were doing things, you know, songs were written, you looked great on camera, there was, you could virtue signal, there were a lot of things going well in terms of a fun, happy lifestyle of a virtuous person that wanted to do some good for the world. If you were alive in the 1960s, that's the way that the left sees it. And they don't have that. They just don't have that. And so this leads me to the next point, which is that for the left, their moral crusade is to hurt the Nazis. That's their moral crusade. And this is a big problem, because at the moment, the conservative movement, now of course, for the alt-right, for the radical right, this is a non-issue. They just don't care. Because whatever, I've been called Nazi any number of times. I've been called all kinds of names, and I just don't care anymore. But it's not that fun for your average conservative. They don't want to be labeled a Nazi, so they don't have a good comeback, which means that from a leftist standpoint, they're using the language, they're calling people Nazis, and then when a conservative fails to rebuke it effectively, it kind of sticks. In the mind of the leftist, the accusation of Nazi without a firm refutation means that the accusation is real, and that's a problem. And this is one of the reasons why I was thinking for a while that I might want to start calling everything racist. Anytime anything bad happens, just call it racist. Stub my toe, racist. Cough on my food, racist. Have a runny nose, don't have a napkin, have to wipe it on my hand in front of someone, boom, racist. Anything to call anything at all racist would be, in theory, a net positive, because you could take the wind out of that sail. You could reduce that word to being meaningless by applying it to absolutely everything that you don't like. That would be a major project. It would require thousands of people operating in tandem to make that happen, but I think that it could probably work. I don't have a way of getting this word out. I'm just saying I think it would be a good idea, something to consider anyway. Alright, so yeah, the radical left, their big thing is hurting Nazis, and that's not cool, because basically they're going to start hurting innocent people. And, you know, just as I was saying earlier, I don't know how to come back from that. And that's a real issue. Because of the escalation problem, once you start on the path of calling people Nazis, once you start on the path of accusing people of genocide, it's difficult to pull back from that. So we're kind of there, you know. Maxine Waters talking about harassing people in public, not during their business hours, not during or not as they're operating in an official capacity, but just harassing them wherever they are. This is the escalation, you know. And when think about all those times back in high school when someone said, "Oh, hey, what would you do? What would you do if you were in Nazi Germany? Would you resist? Would you, fight the Nazis from inside? What if you were a German in Nazi Germany? Would you be a Nazi?" This is the kind of thought process that they're coming from. And this is why, for them, they feel, because of the rhetoric being employed, they feel like they are behind enemy lines. They feel like they are in Nazi Germany. And they're just waiting for the goose-stepping to start. And that's why they're so shrill. And that's why they're becoming violent. Because for them, they're starting to believe all of the rhetoric. It's not good. Somehow it's got to stop. And this is one of the reasons why I think it might be a good idea to just call absolutely everything that you don't like racist. Because then it kind of it reduces the emotional impact of the word. It's exactly like with money. Print a lot of money, becomes worthless. Say a word enough times, becomes worthless. So yeah, it's just a thought. Just a thought. Anyway, and then see here. Finally, and this is just sort of like a random thought. The right, the conservatives, they're kind of in a losing position at the moment, partly because of the phrase or of the. It's not a proverb. I don't know what to call it, but this phrasing, I like it a lot. There are two kinds of people in the world: those who want to be left alone and those who will not leave others alone. The left will not leave others alone, and the right wants to be left alone. I know for myself, I want to be left alone, and I know damned well that the left will not leave me alone. And I fear that conservatives will allow a boiling frog scenario to move all the way to hard socialism and possibly into communism, because there is an unwillingness to draw a line in the sand and say, no, we're not going any further than this. Here in California, I'm watching my Second Amendment rights get revoked. Well, not Second Amendment protections, I should say. I'm watching it all get revoked. I'm watching it all go away. And it's very distressing. And of course, coming back to the demographics issue, as we have more left-leaning voters imported en masse by the day, this means that my ability to speak free, because the Mexicans, they do not really value free speech, just as they do not value right to self-defense. It's just not important to them. Nothing against them, obviously. I don't care what they do in Mexico. They can live however they want in Mexico. I don't want to live under those rules. I don't want to live in Mexico. If I did want to live in Mexico, I would have moved to freaking Mexico, but I did not. So I don't want to live under their rules anyway. Yeah, I see a boiling frog scenario. Just look at Texas. They were doing quite well, and they are still largely in denial, and they think that they're going to be fine, that they're never going to go blue. And it's like, dude, you're staring down the barrel of this gun right now, and their rights are about to be taken away because the people in Houston and in Austin are rabid leftists. They are feral communists, and bad things are in store for those guys. If we were to see any kind of a in January 1919, there was the initial Bolshevik push in Berlin, and people died during that. There were riots. It was crazy. And then later on in the year, there was another big Bolshevik push. It was the Spartacist revolution. Yeah, like hundreds of people died. I think that Austin, Texas, they could easily go in that direction. And the reason I pick Austin is because Austin is a little tiny island of blue in a sea of red, and they would view it in much more militant terms, as where within Southern California it's basically blue, and anywhere you look it's basically blue. So if there's any kind of a socialist push here, there would be comparatively less resistance than than in Texas. So I think that if we were going to see hyper-violence from the socialists, it'd actually be places like Austin, Texas. At any rate, yeah, I'm very vexed with the concept of a possible civil war, because I do think that it's going to heat up, and my honest opinion is that it's probably going to be, at worst, I think it's going to be a series of Waco, Texases. That's what I think is going to happen. I actually don't see any kind of an outright conflict with weapons in streets or anything. The Aleppo scenario, I don't think it's going to be likely. I think it's going to be a combination of Waco, Texas, Ruby Ridge, and who's that guy? The Cliven Bundy Ranch people up in Oregon. They had their little thing, and then also in Nevada. I see standoffs and stuff like that. That's what I actually see. I don't see a hot civil war. I could be wrong, but that's just what I see at the moment. And I find it upsetting. So, at any rate, I'm a little bit tired right now. Obviously, I've got my jar of peanut butter and I've got a banana ready to go. So I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to gas up a little bit here and get ready for the next push. I'm going to read, by the way, this is an article that I saw. It's a gaslighting article that I saw in the New York Times. It was all over my Twitter feed. And I'm going to go ahead and read it aloud. It's called White Extinction Anxiety by Charles M. Blow. That's what I'm going to read next. And I'll see you on the other side. In the meantime, I'm going to play a track that is very relevant to my general state of mind. This is a track that I grew up with when I was tiny. I loved it quite a lot. And yeah, it's a piece of my childhood. I guess I'm just going to go ahead and let it speak for itself. This is a group called Faithless from the 90s. And I'm going to play it. Rest in peace, eardrums, in 3, 2, 1, 0.
Deep in the bosom of the gentle night is when I search for the light. Pick up my pen and start to write. I struggle to fight dark forces in the clear moonlight without fear. Insomnia. I can't get no sleep. I used to worry, thought I was going mad in a hurry, getting stressed, making excess mess in darkness. No electricity, something's all over me, greasy. Insomnia, please release me and let me dream of making mad love to my girl on the heath. Tearing off tights with my teeth, but there's no release, no peace. I toss and turn without cease, like a curse. Open my eyes and rise like yeast. At least a couple of weeks since I last slept, kept taking sleepers, but now I keep myself pet. Deeper still, the night I write by candlelight. I find insight, fundamental movement. So when it's black, this insomniac, take an original tack, keep the beast in my nature under ceaseless attack. I get no sleep, I can't get no sleep. I can't get no sleep.
That was Faithless. I think that track came out in 1995, but I don't recall. It was in 95 or 96. I want to say it was 95. Anyway, that was back when I was tiny, and I used to love stuff like that because it was fun. I never went outside. I was never a raver, but for some reason I loved the music. It's so weird. When you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. I was way into like Prodigy and like Chemical Brothers, Faithless, stuff like that. And then, yeah, like I wouldn't be caught dead at a rave because, you know, there's like druggies. It's kind of weird. It's expensive. It's strange. It's so weird. Anyway, I'm going to take a sip of water to get some of the excess peanut butter out of my mouth, and then I'm going to go ahead. Excuse me. Then I'm going to go ahead and read some of that article. Okay. Actually, I'm not going to read some of the article. I'm going to read the complete article. This is a cold read, so I've never read this, which means that I'm going to mess up a couple of the sentences. So, sorry about that. And I think we don't need to go too far into an analysis of it. Obviously, I will be giving thoughts, but anyway, we'll just go ahead and read it and see what pops up. This, again, is, in my opinion, a gaslighting article. I think that this is a leftist who is intent on rubbing it in the faces of the white people. So let's see. Okay, here we are. Last week, Pat Buchanan was on the Laura Ingraham show to discuss the humanitarian crisis Donald Trump has created at the border by ripping away children from their parents. See, this is the escalation language that I'm talking about. God damn, I hate these things. Okay. I can clearly see that I'm going to have to prepare myself to get upset. I'm only on the first sentence of the article and I'm already upset. Damn it. Okay, here we go. I'm not going to be ruled by my emotions. Okay, here we go. He was not particularly sympathetic to these families' plights, instead choosing to focus on the demographic danger facing whiteness. Okay, all right. And now we're going to quote. This is a quote. I believe this is Pat Buchanan being quoted. This is the great issue of our time, and the real question is whether Europe has the will and the capacity, and America has the capacity to halt the invasion of the countries until they change the character, political, social, racial, ethnic character of the country entirely. He continues, you cannot stop these sentiments of people who want to live together with their own. Okay. He's saying this out loud, so clearly it's got a ring to it that I'm going to have to do that again to make sure I get the ring correctly. You cannot stop these sentiments of people who want to live together with their own, and they want their own borders protected. Okay, that kind of makes sense. All right. Make no mistake here, Buchanan is talking about protecting white dominance, white culture, white majorities, and white power. Well, but if this was in frickin' Cameroon or whatever, you wouldn't be saying, you know, black dominance, black culture, black majority, or black power. You'd just be like, it was the Cameroons protecting Cameroonian or whatever. Whatever. Anyway, my geography is off. Moving on. God, these people. Okay, moving on. A few days earlier on his blog, he expanded on this point. He's now quoting Pat Buchanan. The existential question, however, thus remains. How does the West, America included, stop the flood tide of immigrants before it alters forever the political and demographic character of our nations and our civilization? I don't see any problem with that. That seems perfectly reasonable to me. I mean, I know, hashtag literally Hitler and all this good stuff, but it's just amazing. All you would have to do is just have that exact same sentence or that same sentiment applied to a Chinese person speaking about China, and suddenly it's a non-issue. I know, I'm preaching to the choir. Okay, let's continue. In describing Western liberals' aversions to instituting racist, xenophobic immigration policies, he wrote, We are truly dealing here with an ideology of Western suicide. He ended with this. Trump may be on the wrong side politically and emotionally of this issue of separating migrant kids from their parents, but on the mega issue, the third world invasion of the West, he is riding the great wave of the future, if the West is to have a future. Okay. You know, you may agree or disagree with what Pat Buchanan is saying, but, you know, all right, it's okay, it's fine. And now we go back to the author of the article, the gaslighter. Strip down all the other rationales away from this draconian immigration policy. This is at its core. White extinction anxiety, white displacement anxiety, white minority anxiety. This is the fear and anxiety Trump is playing to. Politico magazine dubbed Trump Pat Buchanan with better timing. Okay, but our populations are declining and we're being attacked at all times. Of course there's an anxiety. No duh. All right, let's go on. White people have been the majority of people considered United States citizens since this country was founded, but that period is rapidly drawing to a close. See, this is why I have to remind myself not to get upset, because it's this kind of language that just really rubs me the wrong way. Okay, let's continue down. As Brookings reported last week, I don't know who's being quoted, someone from within the Brookings report. Let's continue. First, for the first time since the Census Bureau has released these annual statistics, they show an absolute decline in the nation's white, non-Hispanic population, accelerating a phenomenon that was not projected to occur until the next decade. Ho ho ho. So they've known about this. They've known about this to the point that they're going to make projections based on decades long. All right, okay. All right, so this is a long-term plan that's been employed for quite some time, and they're planning on replacing us, and this has been in the works. Okay, let's continue. The report continued. Second, the new numbers show that for the first time there are more children who are minorities than who are white, at every age from 0 to 9. This means we are on the cusp of seeing the first minority white generation born in 2007 and later, which perhaps we can dub Generation Z+. Well, there you have it, folks. The kill shot seems to have been delivered. We're going to have to strap on, buddy. Strap yourselves in. We are in for a ride. Let's go. So we're on the same page. I'm a little less than halfway down the article. Okay, here we go. The Applied Population Lab at the University of Wisconsin-Madison also issued a report last week that pointed out in 2016 more non-Hispanic whites died than were born in 26 states, more than at any time in U.S. history. Some 179 million residents, or roughly 56% of the U.S. population, lived in these 26 states. Let me go ahead and repeat that, because this is worth repeating. In 2016, more non-Hispanic whites died than were born. In 26 states, more than at any time in U.S. history. Some 179 million residents, or roughly 56% of the U.S. population, lived in these 26 states. So in other words, we're getting a net loss of the white population in over half of the geographic area of the United States. This is a big issue. Okay, let's continue. The report also noted that when births fail to keep pace with deaths, a region is said to have a natural decrease in population, and that a finding from previous research on natural decrease, which is consistent with our findings, is that once an area begins to experience natural decrease, the trend is likely to continue. Only California, New Mexico, and West Virginia have experienced natural increase after the initial onset of decrease, and in each case it was only for a year. Oh gosh, someone is messaging me, and that has to stop immediately. Okay. Okay, we're going to make that go away. Alright, let's continue back. So yeah, it looks like the decrease is going to continue more or less indefinitely. This is a major issue. Simply saying to yourself, I'm going to have babies, it's a great start, and you should do it. Do it. Just generally do it. And know that it may be a drop in the bucket, but you have to freaking do it. We're going to have to do everything possible to support the idea of people procreating. That has to be a program. That must be a program. We can't throw our hands up in the air. We're going to have to actually get our hands dirty. We're going to have to start doing hard work. And that hard work means that we're going to basically have to rebuild the civilization. Okay, here we go. This is happening. America will soon be majority-minority country. White America is growing older. There are fewer white women of childbearing age, and the white fertility rate is lower than that of Hispanics and blacks. All manner of current policy grows out of this panic over loss of privilege and power. Immigration policy, voter suppression, Trump economic isolationist impulses, his contempt for people from Haiti and Africa, the Muslim ban, his rage over Black Lives Matter and social justice protests, everything. Yeah, so basically, the author is saying that everything he doesn't like is because white people. Okay, that's fine. Trump, continuing with the article, Trump is president and is beloved by his base in part because he is unapologetically defending whiteness from everything that threatens it, or at least that's the image he wants to project. It is no more complicated than that. These immigrant children crying out for their mothers and fathers are collateral damage, pawns in a political battle to wring strict legislation out of Congress, medieval torture displays meant to serve as deterrents. Good God. Let's continue. We've only got 3 paragraphs to go left. 3 paragraphs. Here we go. As Pat Buchanan wrote in his book, Suicide of a Superpower, which got him fired from MSNBC because of its racist overtones, white America is an endangered species, and he chided any white person who might cheer this nation's changing demographics. And now we're going to quote Buchanan again. Ethnomasochism, the taking of pleasure in the dispossession of one's own ethnic group, is a disease of the heart that never afflicted the America of Andrew Jackson, Theodore Roosevelt, or Dwight Eisenhower. It comes out of what James Burnham called an ideology of Western suicide, a belief system that provides a morphine drip for people who have come to accept the inevitability of their departure from history. Well, I actually kind of agree with that. All right, and now for the final paragraph. It's only 1 sentence. Here we go. These immigration policies are for people who conflated America with whiteness, and therefore a loss of white primacy becomes a loss of American identity. Okay, that last paragraph wasn't as bad as I thought. It was just normal drivel. And there we have it. Basically, hashtag literally Hitler. Everyone is hashtag literally Hitler, according to this guy. So there we go. That's the context of the Civil War. That's the psychology of the Civil War as I see it right now. We have a white population that is under attack constantly, that is being derided, and there's just general hostility. That's really all. It's just hostility in general. And the shift in demographics, I think, is just going to accelerate this hostility. I think it's going to increase the number of attacks, and I think that it's going to decrease our rights and our freedoms. And obviously not just the rights and freedoms of white people, but clearly the rights and freedoms of blacks and of Mexicans. But to them, apparently it's not as much of an issue. I refer to the first 2 amendments, which happen to be my favorite 2 amendments. They don't care about them, not the way that we do. And similarly, they don't seem to care as much about, well, I guess they do care about freedom of association, so long as the freedom of association is only for them and not for white people. quite vexing, quite vexing. So, okay, all of that said, I'm going to go up into the chat because a fair amount has happened in the chat. I'm going to see what it all says. So here we go. Okay. All the way up the top. There we are. Julian Groiper. It's more the concentration of wealth in the hands of a transnational elite taking the form of centralized multinationals. I agree with that. I actually do agree with that. I feel like I'm saying I agree with that a lot, but no, I actually do agree with that. It's not the inherent properties of the corporation, but the scale it has taken on the modern mass technocratic society. I kind of agree with that too. I wouldn't have as many problems with corporations if they were smaller, if they were tinier, if there were more of them. The big monoliths are not a good thing in my opinion. So yeah, I kind of agree with that it's a matter of scale. The socialist is now the useful idiot of the bourgeois urbanite liberal and their elite masters. Totally agree with that one. Lots of useful idiots, especially where I live. You wouldn't believe. The left have an objective morality of sorts, but it derives from different premises. I wouldn't mind hearing about them. Let's go to Elaine Sabatino. I forgot to set my alarm. Hey, how's it going, buddy? Oh yeah, you're asleep. Oh, I'm a little bit envious. I kind of wanted to take a nap before this stream, but I ended up not doing it. And I totally regret not doing that. Okay. I had a great red pilling experience tonight with a CivNat who is reluctant but open. Nice. I've been using the tactic that calling anything racist is inherently anti-white. I got it from Nick Alsop. Yeah, I've been trying to work that in. I find it difficult for myself, but that's just me. But it's nice to hear that you had success. They just want bodies for votes. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Stiffnets. Oh, Stiffnets. I've spoken with basically, quote, Jordan B. Peterson and Shapiro verbatim. Yeah, I agree. I've seen a lot of that. I know a guy that's kind of purple-pilled, and he's way into Jordan B. Peterson. He's a nice guy. He's actually really smart, and I'm kind of bummed out that he's a Jordan B. Peterson fan. But maybe he'll come out of it. It's tough to say. No one really knows. And yeah, some discussion on music here. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, raves are gay. Raves are genuinely gay. And it sucks too because like I love the the really good rave music. You know, the sort of more proggy stuff. I love it. It's fantastic. And then yeah, like some of the people that infest those scenes, you're like, okay, this is actually. I feel like I need to shower just looking at some of these people, and it's surreal for me, liking the music but not liking the people. That's actually kind of weird when you stop and think about it. That's actually weird. Like really, it is weird. Okay, so what did we learn about the Civil War Part Deuce? Oh geez, I don't know. So far, I'm just exploring the subject for the moment. That's the way that I'm looking. I'm going to be doing a series on the pending Civil War in America, and I guess I could do one on Europe as well, but I kind of want to focus on America because I don't know as much about what's going on in America as I should. I spent a little more time in 2016 learning about like Islam and what was going on in Europe and all that good stuff, so I spent so much time, you know, and this is coming from being totally ignorant about everything, so I spent so much time on that I ended up becoming kind of ignorant about what's going on in America, just by, you know, attention. As you focus on one thing, you're not going to be focusing on anything else because you're only focused on that one thing. So I'm now trying to focus on what's going on in America so that I can comprehend the context that I'm going to have to live through for basically the rest of my life. So let's continue down. Elaine Sabatino at Snugs. Maxine Waters is just off the hook. So is Kamala Harris. Yeah, they're all out of control. And I went to a Kamala Harris rally earlier this year, just like a month and a half, 2 months ago or something. And there is so much money behind her, you wouldn't believe it. I think they're going to push her for let me rephrase that. I think that they are contemplating pushing her for president, for nomination. I don't know if they're going to, but I think they're contemplating it. There's enough money behind her that I think that it's a real possibility. Obviously, who knows it's actually going to happen. I'm just saying I think it's possible. She's a machine, and she toes the party line. She does so without question. She's really good at that. Okay, Europe is not going to make it. Oh God, no! Don't say it. No, I want white pills, not black pills, buddy. Please don't. Not France or England anyway. Sweden took a conservative turn. Yeah, I'm seeing some of these movements toward more conservatism, toward nationalism. Italy recently did that, and I think that's just fabulous news. I would like to see way more of that. I'm hoping that we're going to see more of that in general, because that would just be, I would be so happy to hear that we're going to actually see a Europe that doesn't die. Oh God, that would be wonderful. Here in America, I'm a little less optimistic because, I mean, good God, the mass importation of Mexicans is turning this country into Mexico. I don't see any way out of that. And all you have to do is even look at just, who is that guy, Owen Benjamin, or Benjamin Owen, or whatever. Like, yeah, he married a Castizo, and I mean, I see this all the time. Leftists, especially self-loathing leftists. It's like they're. It's not like they are. They are actually genuinely trying to destroy their genes. They're trying to destroy their heritage. They're trying to destroy everything that was given to them over tens of thousands of years, and they're doing it in one single generation. It's madness. It's utter madness. Anyway, yeah, I'm seeing a movement towards people thinking in terms of preservation, which I think is a good thing. Maybe another way that Elaine Sabatino, maybe another way you could red pill people, would be to compare whites to the red squirrel population in England that is being overrun by the gray squirrel population. That would be one way of looking at it. Okay, let's continue down. Paul Beckman, Elaine Sabatino, great tactic. Oh yeah, the anti-white thing. Yeah, I should do that more. I should do that, seriously. I should. Because I've never experimented with that in real life. I know that I've heard stories of it working, but I've never done it myself. I should do it. Okay. Trolls like libs fear the sun. They will always reveal their true colors. Yeah, man. Call them what they are. Okie doke. Oh, Paul Beckman, you're out in Norway. Nice. That's cool. Cool. Hey, man. Word up. I don't know how to say freaking hello in Norse speak, so just imagine that I'm saying hello in Norse speak. Okay, there we go. It's okay, yeah, there's now they're talking about weather. I'm gonna go ahead and continue down. Let's see here. I'm in California Bay Area, and it's always nice here. It's more of that. Okay, that's fine. To you, Arthur Kepler says, Eke, I was saying before that I think we're past the crash course, and you confirmed it with the negative growth of whites. Oh yeah, well, but there could be new people. You never know. There might be a person that's watching my streams for the first time. So I kind of like the idea of giving some context. I think it's an important thing in general, because there's always going to be somebody that's new. There's always going to be a person that's going to be catching this for the first time. And the way that culture functions is through repetition. So it seems important that we make sure that our positions are so clear and that we wear them on our sleeves at all time, that a new person, just imagine for a moment a hypothetical scenario. This is not the case, but let's pretend that some, I don't know, 14-year-old Gen Z kid for some reason stumbles on my stream and is experiencing and hearing all of this for the first time. It would be nice if he had a clean understanding of what the hell I was talking about. It would be nice if he had a context. So it's in deference to the possible new viewers that I do this. So I do understand that sometimes, by sometimes I mean all the time, I repeat myself. And I can't help it. I think it's important. I really do think that it's important. I want to make sure that the younger kids, they get access to this information, that they understand the context of what is being discussed. So Yeah, yeah, I understand the criticism. There are times when, for example, I'll hear, millennial woes say the same talking point in multiple videos, and part of me kind of rolls my eyes, and I'm like, all right, buddy, I've heard it. I know what's going on. You don't have to tell me. And at the same time, it's like, yeah, but I didn't watch his videos in order, so I was watching some of his later videos first. So it's just the style that I'm adopting for now. I would like this to be so common knowledge that these qualifiers are unnecessary to say, but we'll see how that goes into the future. Okay. Let's see here. Sabatino says it's so black-pilling, but we need to hear it. Yeah, pretty much. I agree with that. We need to hear the bad stuff too. Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's see here. Kamala is Soros-backed. You never would have seen mainstream Democrats siding with these loonies even 10 years ago. I actually kind of agree with that. The Democrats, it's gotten way worse over the past, I would say, 6 years. Somewhere around like 2011 to 2012, so maybe closer to 7 years. Like 2011 to 2012, that's when I started to see a real shift toward spitefulness and towards vengefulness. And I think that this is, that's the turning point that I would say. Just before Obama's second term, that's when I would say the real shift in the Democratic Party, the real tonal shift took place. But that's just what I observed. Anyway, I always tout gay stats. Hey Eke, it is hi or hello. Oh, hello, nice. I like it. Hello is nice. I like that's a funny one. Okay, good. Is Owen Benjamin Jewish? I don't think he is, but some people suspect that he might be. Yeah, he might be. I don't really know. It's tough to say. I mean, who even knows? In some sense, who even cares? If he is, he's destroying his genetics. If he's not, he's destroying his genetics. In both cases, he's destroying his genetics. And the way that I see it is, I think that we should not be encouraging people to destroy their genetics, even the Jewish people, even the black people, even the Mexicans, even the Asians, because we will end up with a hybridized sort of underclass race if we allow this to go too much further. And I don't think it's a good thing, but we'll see what happens. Side note to that, I know a lot of mixed race people who are not breeding. They are not having children. They are millennials who have, for whatever reason, decided to go the feminist / MGTOW route of not having kids. So you could argue that the miscegenation angle is actually not going to be an issue into the future, because on a net level there is a tendency to not reproduce. Most of the people who are of mixed race, they tend, and I stress tend, to be leftists and born from leftist families, which means that they will not have the it's not impulse. Religious people just tend to procreate more. That's just the way that it works. And typically they will cite God, they will cite the Bible as their impetus for procreating, go forth and be fruitful, this sort of a thing. And lots of the mixed race people that I know, they don't have that instilled into them. So I don't know, make of that what you will. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Okay. Paul Beckman says, Millennial Woes is suspect. I have subversive feeling. Yeah, it's possible. I couldn't say. If you look at Millennial Woes, I feel a lot like that guy most of the time. If you just listen to the way that he speaks, listen to the kinds of things that he talks about, it's difficult to describe. I get the impression that he's actually legit, like, kind of degenerate, and he recognizes that there's no future in that. He recognizes that that kind of a lifestyle is not good for society in general, and so he's rejecting it. He's rejecting something that's kind of a part of him in an effort to not so much to cohere with society, but to help be sort of like on the same page as the people who would be a benefit to society. And that's genuinely how I feel, because when I was a kid, I mean, I grew up in an environment that was so paused you would not believe it. And my high school years were basically, not that I was pure degeneracy or anything, but I wasn't far off. I was steeped in it, and I still have certain inclinations and proclivities that they just exist. And I kind of have to make I do have to make a conscious effort to keep myself in check. And I get the impression that Millennial Woes probably has something like that as well for him, but I don't know. I really don't know. That said, I don't know, maybe he is a subversive, I don't know. I've never met the guy, so I couldn't even say. At this point, obviously, what am I doing? I'm just engaging in supposition, which may or may not be grounded in any kind of reality. Okay, let's continue down. Owen does call out the Rothschilds, at least, but he's thick as thieves with Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro. Yeah, this is how it works, man. This is how it works. This is one of the reasons why I try to remember and remind myself. I try to remember that I used to be a Steven Crowder fan. I try to remind myself that I went through a Dennis Prager phase. And this is just the way that it goes. You go through your phase and you come out the other side. And as far as I'm concerned, if these guys serve, if these Steve Crowder types, if these Milo Yiannopoulos types, if they serve, Ben Shapiro, Jordan B. Peterson, and so on, if they serve as a bridge to get somewhere that's better, I'm actually okay with that. Do I think they're ridiculous? Yes, I think they're ridiculous. Do I think that all of the people, rather, not everyone is going to get to where we are. We are a select portion of the population, which is both good and bad. Good because we get to pat ourselves on the back and say, wow, look at how smart you are, or well done, that's great, you're super smart, great, cool, awesome. The downside to that is that we are a minority, an absolute minority, and it's always going to remain that way. And, the red pill thing. So that's a bit of an issue. And I would say that with guys like Ben Shapiro and Owen Benjamin, yeah, they're going to serve as a bridge for some people. They're going to be a cul-de-sac for many people, but they're going to serve as a bridge for those who are capable of it. So I'm okay with it. Personal opinion, I am okay with it. I'm getting a little lightheaded again, so I think I'm going to take one more break to get some peanut butter. And while I do that, I'm going to go ahead and just play a quick track. I forget the name of this track. Oh, that's right. Now I remember. The name of this track is Fashionable. This is Fashionable by St. Francis. I'm going to have some peanut butter while we listen to Fashionable by St. Francis. Rest in peace, eardrums, in 3, 2, 1, 0. All right, that was Saint Francis with his super awesome track, Fashionable. All right, let's continue. Continue up to chat. All right, yeah, as long as they don't say shit like oi, we don't do anything wrong. Okay, Jews are fabulous all the time. Then I'm okay with them. Okay. Yeah, I because I'm in Los Angeles, I grew up around Jewish people, and for the most part, they're not that bad. I tend to agree with the frame game model of it's the organizations that I fear. It's the organizations that I have a problem with. The average bloke on the street, I don't really care that much about. They're usually pretty good to me. Very few of them have ever been like the shifty types, but that's just my own experience. You know, everyone's experience is going to be different. But yeah, I still fundamentally have the concept in my head that I don't want to be ruled by people who are not me. So in as much as Jews don't self-identify as white, I don't want to be ruled by them. I want to be ruled by people who identify as being like me. That's just the way that I am. So, but whatever. Okay, we'll continue down. Eke, I concur. We should be not mixed races. Side effects are crazy, and they always side with the non-white. Yeah, that's correct. That's the case. Consider the black population in America. They are genetically like 25-ish% European, which means that there were a lot of mixed race people that were having like the whites were having babies with the Africans. And if you think about it long enough, that basically means that the mulatto children, they tended to have kids with with other blacks, which just means that over time the mixing moved more towards the blacks than it did the whites, if that makes any sense. You see fewer whites with minute black genes, but you'll see lots of blacks with minute white genes. Peculiar. It's very, very peculiar. All right, let's continue down. Ben is annoying. Yeah, I went through a little tiny Ben phase for I think maybe 3 or 4 days or something, and then I realized that I didn't really care. Like, he's kind of funny once or twice, but then after that it's like, okay, whatever, I don't really care. All right, Arthur Kepler says, Los Angeles sounds like a nightmare, a blue nightmare. You are in no way kidding. That is 100% true. This place is rough business, dude. I mentioned it in a stream a little while ago that I'm looking at getting a CCW. And the reason that I want to get a CCW is because there are days when I just walk around and I feel vulnerable. I just don't feel safe, you know, in my own neighborhood. And the neighborhood that I live in right now, I've lived here for quite some time, since before the year 2000. And yeah, this was a predominantly white neighborhood, no longer. Now there, you know, I'm getting shade from people who are in the neighborhood, you know, not to my face in the sense of that they're not coming up to me and saying, Eke, you're a jerk and we hate you because you're white. It's nothing like that. It's way more subversive and way more subtle. It's just the way that I'm treated. It's really hard to describe. It's really hard to describe. Anyway, let's continue down. I think I already told you guys, but I'm 2% European. Nice. Good. That's excellent. That means you've got 2% awesome in you. So hey, man, rock it. Do it. That's what I would do. All right. They have suppressed this information for so long that it's racist to even talk about side effects of race mixing. Yeah, I know, it sucks. Dennis Prager seems like a snake oil salesman. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree, because I didn't think that the PragerU video on the alt-right was fair in the least, and that really bothered me. I'm okay with a person disliking the alt-right, for this reason or that reason, but I don't like when people are dishonest about it. I don't like it when people misrepresent something. That's not cool. Okay, let's continue down. Asian Hoppins are all SJWs, at least in the Bay Area anyway. Let me think about that. Yeah, I think you're... Let me phrase that. I think that my experience is the same. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure my experience is the same. Alright, Elaine, in Asia too? Yeah, probably, I would imagine so. And yeah, man, peanut butter nationalism, buddy. You know what's going on. Alright, used to watch Ben Shapiro. He just creeps me out now. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I do kind of feel the same way. Needs more helicopter. Nice. Oh yeah, in reference to the video. Yeah, maybe I'll take that into account. Arthur Kepler says, and in Europe, they're like that everywhere, but Hoppas are concentrated in Northern Europe. Oh yeah, because all of the what is it? All of the Englishmen that were importing Thai brides or some crap. Apparently, that's a big issue, which I still think is a bad call, but you know, whatever. All right, moving on. Let's see here. They're really a minority in the continent. Oh yeah, good. Should stay that way. We need to preserve our people. All right, Elaine, Hoppas hate pure races by default. Yeah, I've seen some stuff like that. The Kalergi plan was written by a guy who's half Japanese, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is a larger issue. Dear Mussolini, listen to that, Eke. Yeah. Oh yeah, okay. I was listening to, well, whatever. Anyway, yeah, I'm more of an who's that guy? Jonathan Bowden, but that's me. Anyway, Eke, my best friend is half Jewish. We have lively discussions. He is a Trump voter. Oh, nice, good. That's cool. Yeah. I'm actually, yeah. This is why I feel like such a. I feel like a normie that just like popped into a party. That's really how I feel. With where I am, because like there's so many people that are like way more hardcore than I am, and I feel like such a weirdo, because I'm just like, yeah, man, I'm gonna listen to my paused music and hang out with my lesbian friend, and it's like, oh my god, listen to me. I sound like a dork, man. I don't sound like I belong at all. It sucks, Oh well, what are you gonna do? It's just where I am. I'm not gonna judge. I can't. I just can't, because I'm paused. It sucks. It sucks so hard. All right. Let's continue down. Ekelux, were you diversity touring the ladies back in the day? Oh, don't call me out, bro. Don't call me out. I was. I don't want to say the ethnicity of my first girlfriend, but she was half something. Well, I guess, I'm going to be doxxed at some point. I don't think anyone would go that far back into my life to start doxing people that I knew years ago, because that just seems like a stupid thing to do in general. Okay, yeah, alright. Yeah, in this context, I think it's okay. Yeah, my first girlfriend, she was actually Native American. So, yeah, I totally was a diversity tourist, and it's embarrassing to admit, I guess, with my current style of thinking, but she was cute, she was goofy, she was fun to be around. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? It's just the way that it was. This is how Los Angeles was back in the day. It was considered fashionable and cool, and I grew up in the middle of it, so that's just the way that it was. What are you gonna do? Anyway, let's see here. Implicit hostility. Yeah, that's kind of, yeah, that's right. It's very Civ Nash. It was. It's true. Implicit hostility. Yeah, implicit hostility, I think, is the easiest way to describe how I'm treated by the millennial blacks and Mexicans that I'm around. It's not that they're not trying to attack me. They're not trying to be mean to me, but at the same time, I just get the feeling of contempt. It's really hard to describe. I don't know how else to describe it. Just imagine, trying to say hello, and then their gaze averts immediately, or they stare through you. Like, they look at you in the eye as you're saying hello, and they don't say anything. They just stare at you, and they keep walking, and you're like, dude, I'm putting myself out trying to be polite. Come on, buddy, throw me a freaking bone. You know, and it's like you get the opposite of civility. You get the opposite of decency and dignity. It sucks. All right, let's see here. My ex-BF is Jewish, and he's still my landlord. Sometimes I start making headway with him, but he's 11 years older than I am, so he's set in his ways. Hates Trump. He kind of likes frame games. Hey, man, you know what? If he's capable of figuring things out, great. If not, that's fine too. I kind of in the mindset these days that as long as a person is treating me well, I'm pretty much okay. That's really all I care about. I just want to be treated with decency and dignity. That's all I care about. So as long as he's not like haranguing you, hey, that's a step in the right direction, you know. Because I do fear civil war, I just get the impression that I want people to be okay. I want people to not be thinking about stabbing each other, you know. So you're doing great. You're doing fantastic in that regard. All right. PragerU is super pro-capitalist on steroids. I don't know. I can't really say. I don't watch PragerU anymore. I mean, I did when it first came out, or when I first heard about it, or whatever that was. And now I largely don't care. I think the last one I watched was the alt-right one, and the only reason was to figure out, or to find out what he was going to say about it, and that was it. And it was largely retarded, so I just didn't care. All right, Eke, what do you think about the super inferiority complex that people from Mexico hold towards Europeans? Oh, as in Mexicans feeling inferior to the Europeans? I don't know. I mean, if that's what you're saying anyway. The impression that I get is that the Mexicans just kind of, they just do what they do, and they don't really worry about too much else. That's just the oh god, this is gonna sound terrible, but in the movie The Dark Crystal, they're the little potato people. Oh god, not the Gelflings, not the Skeksis, but the potato people that were that were the low-level workers. God, what the hell were they called? I forgot what they were called. Anyway, the impression that I get is that Mexicans are kind of like that. They're happy, they're fun-loving, they're kind of simple, they do what they do, and there doesn't seem to be much concern about anything beyond just kind of doing what they do, living their day, and that's about it. That said, I have met a lot of Mexicans that love and adore white culture. There's this one guy that I like to hang out with at the coffee shop that I go to, and he's Castizo, and he likes the same stuff that I like. He likes Depeche Mode. He likes Nine Inch Nails, and I'm a huge fan of that guy. He's one of my favorite people to hang out with at that coffee shop. He's great. And I mean, obviously, necessarily, what is he doing? He's saying that he loves white culture. I mean, of course, he's exposed to Mexican music and he can sing many of the songs or whatever. But his oh yeah, that's right. He recently got into noise art of all things. So he's listening to soundscapes, which is kind of interesting. And of course, most of it is produced and arranged by white people. That's kind of funny. Yeah, what are you gonna do? It's kind of funny. All right, let's continue down. Yeah, I think that's what you're referring to, Kepler. It seems as though I don't think that they hold themselves as being inferior. I just see them as being uninterested in anything beyond just living their lives. Really, I don't know how else to express that sentiment. And they have a tendency to like white culture, so I think that superficially it could look like they have an inferiority complex, but I don't think that's the case. That's just what I see. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. That's just what I see. All right. Eke. Oh, no. Yeah, Eke. Look up the channel Active Self-Protection. Self-defense is counterintuitive. Self-defense is counterintuitive, so it's a good channel. You know what? I will. Active self. I'm gonna look that up right now, just to check it out, just to see it. Okay, active self-protection. Where are we? Oh, that guy. Yeah. I don't know. I've been watching that guy for quite some time. He always has those little. He does like an analysis of CCTV footage. You know, what to do, what not to do, why to do it, and all this good stuff. No, I love that guy. Yeah, he's great. That's cool. It's always fun to see that other people are into the same things that I'm into. Neat. All right, cool. Moving on. We are all dorks and paused by culture, at least secondhand. Yeah, I know. This is why I try not to judge myself or other people too harshly, because it's like, I was there, man, you know? So what are you going to do? All right, yeah, SIP-based TP. Oh, God, that's terrible. All right. Arthur Kepler, Mexicans with the native blood are always reminded by Europeans every day by their leaders as they hail 100% from Europe. Oh, okay, yeah. That's a Mexico thing, and I'm not very well versed in what's going on in Mexico, but I have heard that the Castizo and the more European Mexicans are the ones that are, you know, in charge. That's what I've heard, and I'm willing to believe it because it makes sense if you look especially at what's going on Mexican TV. So in that context, you know, one that's outside of America, maybe that's the case, but that's way outside of my experience. All right, Kepler, I'm from Connecticut, and I see a huge difference between PRs and Mexican. Puerto Ricans are much more assimilated, and I think it's because they have more European genes. I think that's the case as well. I knew a couple of Puerto Ricans, and they were way integrated by comparison. I mean, it's not that they were indistinguishable from whites, but it would have been, yeah, like they were closer in terms of culture and conduct and everything. Yeah. All right. Sure as hell Mexicans act different in Europe. They're passive aggressive here. Oh yeah, I wouldn't know. That's a hell of a thing. Okay. Arthur Kepler, where in Europe? I'm in Norway. I'm in the south. Maybe that's why they behave like that. Yeah. Well. Yeah. I've known one or two that have been kind of passive aggressive, but I guess I haven't really thought about it. All right, the Mexicans I've worked with at a discount store were pretty nice, but there were a bunch who didn't speak English. I still didn't connect with them enough to say to stay in touch after I left. So it goes, man. I've had those experiences any number of times, and that's just the way that it goes, man. You have a job, you leave it, and then out of nowhere you're like, yep, I'm never going to see this person again in my life. It kind of sucks, but I guess it's just the way that it goes. All right, well, I hit the bottom of the chat. I'm pretty tired. The insomnia has been kicking my butt again, and since it's way after the 1 hour mark, I kind of want to get going, so I think that's what I'm going to do. I want to go ahead and thank everyone for popping by. So basically the recap is today the Civil War is, there's a peculiar context. And that peculiar context is basically multi-layered and multifaceted, and it's going to be a bit of a deal. It's going to be a bit of a thing. It's going to be a problem going into the future, and I'm not sure just yet what I'm going to do about it with regards to my own life. It's my hope that I'll be able to understand it a little bit better so that I can hopefully make a couple of decisions so that I can tailor my life to minimize some of the worst of the negative impacts. Being in Los Angeles, I think I may have to leave. I'm looking at getting a CCW, and I'm going to keep my freaking mouth shut when I'm around lefties because they are vicious. So these are the kinds of thought patterns that I'm thinking about now, and these are only short-term. I need to have long-term thought patterns. I need to have long-term goals, and the only way that you can have a long-term goal, in my opinion, is to have an adequate understanding of possible futures so that you can make decisions that will allow you to flourish in multiple different futures. So that's where I'm going to be centering my thoughts in the future, and I guess that's about it. I'm going to play one more track. It is a paused track, but I happen to like it. It's just really well produced. It's well arranged, It's just great. It's a really good track, and I like it a lot. And before I play the track, I'm going to go ahead and say, rule number 1, treat every firearm like it's loaded. Rule number 2, never cover or sweep anything that you are not willing to destroy. Rule number 3, your finger stays off of the trigger until the sights are on target. And the 4th and final rule is be aware of your target and what's beyond it. Safety first, always safety first. And of course, put your eyes and ears on, because you don't want to blow your eardrums out and you don't want to get some freaking stupid dust in your eyes or some crap. So eyes and ears. And yeah, I guess that about does it. Floss your teeth, brush your teeth, drink some water, get outside and exercise. And for the final track, I'm going to go ahead and play. Let's see here. Is there any? Let's see. Great stream. We'll now check out Luke and Kevin show. Oh yeah, we'll now check out Luke and Kevin show for the drinks. Yeah, that's the way to go, man. Okay. So this last track. This is a track by Todd Rundgren. This is off of his, I think it was his 72 or 74 album, and it's hard to explain. It was a great track that fits the zeitgeist. It fits the times perfectly. And with that, I say have a good evening. Rest in peace, eardrums. In 3, 2, 1, 0.
Okay. Wait a minute. Give me a break a second. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3. Something's wrong. There's something here that doesn't last too long. Maybe I shouldn't think of you as mine. Seeing you, or seeing anything as much as I do, I take for granted that you're always there. I take for granted that you just don't care. Sometimes I can't help seeing all the way through. And spend the night